Welcome to Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose podcast. Our podcast showcases inspiring appraisers and professionals from the industry who are leaders in their field. How did they get to where they are? What have they learned along the way? What can we learn from them? Your host is real estate investor, entrepreneur, and appraiser, Michael Hobbs.
Well, I hope you're having a great day, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose podcast. And as you know, it's because of your thoughtfulness, your generosity, your suggestions, and your encouragement that we continue to have fantastic peers sharing their stories about how they got into the profession, what they've been doing in, around, and beyond the profession, and what they're up to these days. So thank you for liking. More importantly, thank you for subscribing, and continue to share, because it's always great to hear about, oh my goodness, my buddy Brian told me about this, and I didn't even know it existed. I've been just devouring the content ever since. Love hearing what other people are up to. Today is no different. We're going to love our guest. I already do. You will as well. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Michael. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I do enjoy your show and your all the guests you have on. It's really cool to see all the different people and the perspectives that they have.
I appreciate that, Joe. I feel quite grateful to have the opportunity just to have the conversations. I wish I would have been a fly on the wall 20, 25 years ago to the conversations that are going on today. Gosh, who knows what would have been possible had I had this much knowledge back then.
That's the truth. Always absorbing everything everywhere. I know typically real estate appraisers are always reading, constantly meeting. We're constantly meeting different people from different walks of life. So it's always something different.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Speaking of walks of life, Joe, everybody wants to know, were you born this way, or how did your life come to intersect the appraisal and valuation profession?
Well, it's kind of a wild story, but it did start off actually as a riverboat captain on the Mississippi River.
Oh, my goodness. I love this. I love where you're going already. Having grown up in Louisville and watching the steamboats going up and down, tell us a story.
Yeah, man. So I used to run push boats all over the place, up and down the Mississippi River, Tennessee River, Tombigbee River.
Yep.
Intercoastal waterway from Brownsville, Texas to St. Marks, Florida, all over the place. And as a young man, a young family. And so I was enjoying it, but I was also missing my family growing up and stuff. So I began to think about, well, what other kind of career would I be interested in getting into? And real estate always piqued my interest.
Really?
And so I began to take online classes and also book learning classes at that time.
Sure.
But when I was on my days off, I would go to school. And then when I was on night shift, I'd get up early and go to school until I, took all the required classes.
Sure.
And I was taking the real estate agents class at first. And I was introduced to the appraisal side of it. I was like, wait a minute, this sounds interesting. So I kind of changed gears and went into the appraisal direction while still working, pushing barges all over the place.
Holy smokes.
Just kind of put that in my front pocket, and an opportunity came about, offered me a part-time position on my days off.
Okay.
I would just go appraise anybody's house that would let me. I was asking family members, just trying to get some of that experience, So that was my entry into the appraisal field. And
that's amazing.
Just 25, 30 years now. This year will be 30 years I've been in the appraisal profession, which is really wild to think about. But it's been a career that I've truly enjoyed. But that's where it started, out on the river to the measuring tape.
That is amazing. So I have no idea what it takes to be a riverboat captain. And you mentioned you were in your 20s pushing barges and things around on all kinds of waterways, more than most people in this country probably even know exist.
Oh man, they don't know what's passing behind them in those canals and in those rivers, man.
How do you get into something like that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I was a young husband with a family, and I just a few years before that, I graduated from high school and was working. The summer I graduated from high school, went offshore and was working on the oil platforms in the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh.
And kind of met some people through that area. And I had two brothers that also were river pilots. They offered me some opportunity to come and learn how to run those boats and operate those boats and I started just like everybody else on the deck, putting those barges together and learning all the things that you have to learn on the deck and operating boat, and how to clean the engine room, how to paint them, all that fun stuff, and it just, worked my way up into operating boat into a captain's position. And so it was a very interesting career. Got to see a lot of different places and experience a lot of different things. But my family was really important. I was missing my kids growing up, and I just wanted to be uh, closer to them and be available to them. So, and that's one of the things that the appraisal profession does offer. It's really a flexible type of schedule that you can, make those t-ball games and make those dance recitals, when you need to, and work that schedule around as much as you can. And so it's really been a fun, interesting career, both of those careers.
Wow, that's amazing. So, because of the ability to both, as you said, take some classes and get some book learning, you came across a part-time opportunity. What were you doing when you first started out?
So I started straight into residential, residential appraisals.
Yeah.
Working in the New Orleans area, working uptown, Garden District, all the way, within that 40, 50-mile radius of New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was looking at all types of properties. One day I may be looking at a shotgun double in the Marigny, and the next day I may be looking at 5,000 square foot house uptown.
Oh, my goodness.
Next day I'm looking at a duplex, in the neighboring parish or county. You guys call them counties.
Sure.
So it was just a plethora of different properties, and I just really bit on and hung on. Anything that they would throw at me, I want to learn. And I had really good mentors that helped me, really mentored me, on those hard properties. This is how you determine, what this property is worth on this type of a property, and just help me, gather that knowledge of appraising the hard ones along with the easy ones. And of course, there were stumbles from time to time, just like any profession that you're mentoring in and apprenticing, you're learning in. But those are the ones you learn from the most. I'll never do that again, right?
Wow.
So it was a good mix of properties that was able to give me some good experience.
That's absolutely amazing. So, were you out on your own right from the start, or was it you and a whole posse of people, or what was it like down there in New Orleans?
Yeah, so no, the first company I went to work for was me, and there was 3 or 4 appraisers in that office. It was pretty much, it was a smaller office, but man, just really good, knowledgeable appraisers in that office that was helping teach me and bring me through, the process of, at that time we were still running film to the photo mat and move pictures into the report.
Mm-hmm.
But I started with that company, and then I moved. Made a move to another company that was more appraisers, more experience, and again, just great mentors, man. Just helped me learn and gave me opportunity, to grow and opened up some partnerships, and built offices out of partnerships, and then eventually, kind of bought each other out of those partnerships and kept good relationships all the way through that. It was no bad feelings. So it was a really good experience of, building businesses together, and then, kind of going off on our own, and building, our own business. So this Joseph Mier and Associates, we've been in this same office that I'm sitting in right here today, 25 years last June.
Ooh, good.
Yeah. So it's been a really good experience. In this particular place I'm located, when we opened this office, I literally knew one person in the whole, I'm going to say county because I'm talking everybody else. We have parishes here. Everybody else is county. I knew one person in the county, right?
Oh my goodness.
And it was my brother. And he didn't know anybody, right?
Yep.
So, but I just started networking, man. I joined the local Realtors Association. I joined the local Builders Association. I joined the local Chamber Association. I began serving in nonprofits and volunteering with some nonprofits, just building those networks and, helping, build those relationships and get to know people and, just, of course, during that time period, you were able to go to the banks and build those relationships personally with the
Sure.
banks and loan officers. So it was just a good time of building good experiences, and building good relationships to build that trust.
Mm-hmm.
That was the cornerstone of what we've done so far, of just good, trustworthy, and work done with integrity.
Wow, that's amazing. So you get this opportunity to go work for a smaller firm part-time. And did you stay residential like early on and then continue to stay that all the way through? Or have you been in other areas and other property types?
Yeah, I've pretty much stayed in residential the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
I began to look at the commercial side of doing commercial work, but I just really enjoy the residential side of the business. And I even, applied, I took a lot of the courses, the income courses and everything with the Appraisal Institute for my general practice license. But I just found that I enjoyed the residential process and the residential work more than the commercial work at that time. As I've kind of grown in the career, I've done some commercial work, working alongside other commercial appraisers, and I don't not like it, but I
Sure.
do enjoy the residential side better.
I totally get it. So what was it like back in the day with your, a part-time coming off the barge, you got your ground legs underneath you again,
Right.
and you're just going out looking at properties now. I mean, whether you're going up to a shotgun ranch or heading up to an old Victorian, I mean, was it literally just, lick the finger, stick it in the wind and be like, okay, I think I got it? Or was that pretty complicated back then?
No, it was definitely, I had a pretty intense mentor.
Oh, really?
So
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so they really, made you do the homework, made you go through the process of the appraisal process. There was no cutting corners. There's a step, just like it is today. There's a step of doing the appraisal process. All of us get those calls. Hey, can you give me an appraisal? I just need a one page. I just need a little something. I'm just trying to figure out. I don't need a full appraisal. But the process is the same, whether you write it on a napkin or if you do a 60-page report. You have to go through the appraisal process.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that was one of the things that was really, pushed on me really, hard, that you have to go through the appraisal process. Don't skip any steps through the appraisal process.
Mm-hmm.
And so that really kind of made me, really dig into the data and really look at the data and really consider your local market. Just because a house in St. Louis is a $300,000 house is not the same as a $300,000 in St. Louis is not the same as a $300,000 house in New Orleans.
That's true. That's true.
And so, commercial appraisers, they'll go states over, and work all kinds of areas. And it always amazes me when I look at a commercial report and they've got comparables in their report that's 2 and 3 and 4 years old. I'm like, man, there's no way I can get away with that residential report. And so just knowing that local market helps. And if you go to any city, every city has different markets of housing, to know those different markets and understand those markets was a good way of really teaching me, how to appraise properties.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got waterfront properties on the bayous down here, all the way up to estate style horse equestrian states, and so there's just such a mix of properties, and I wasn't afraid of anything, man. I would like, give me the hard ones. I like the hard ones. That's where you really learn what you don't know is where you get those hard ones.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. That totally makes sense. That's such an impressive approach to have a grounding in doing the research, because that ultimately the data is the data, and it's the ability to both get data or get in touch with people that have information, and then bring it to some kind of meaningful conclusion.
Yep, a credible conclusion that's understandable.
Yeah, absolutely love that.
For sure.
When you had that opportunity to move from that smaller firm to a larger firm, what changed for you?
I think opportunity changed.
Were you looking to change, or did the change find you?
Well, Well, it actually did kind of find me. I wasn't really looking to make a move. And that's how things happen. The opportunity came up, and I think what it really was the second firm offered more of a scope, a broader scope of work.
Mm,
The smaller firm was really kind of locked into a smaller area that they were serving, and so this new firm really opened up more areas and different types of properties. And so it really gave me an opportunity to really kind of see and determine my experience of, well, what direction do I want to go in the future? Do I want to go to commercial, or do I
yeah.
want to kind of stay here, and do I want to stay in this area? So where I'm located here, we're about 45 miles north of New Orleans. So
Oh,
we've got Lake Pontchartrain that kind of
oh, yeah. Okay.
separates the South Shore
Yes, sir.
from the North Shore.
Hmm.
So the firm, our firm here, we serve the North Shore now. I don't even go on the South Shore, Orleans Parish, Jefferson Parish, St. Bernard Parish. All those areas are south of Lake Pontchartrain.
Got
And
it.
so, although I had a lot of experience down there, and I could go back down there, I would have to relearn that market, kind of familiarize myself with the market again if I did.
Hmm.
But we strictly stay on the North Shore because we
Got
want to
it.
be that local expert, that we know the pulse of our market. I have nothing against any appraiser that wants to go all over the place and do appraisals all over the place. But I think personally, if you're going to be a local expert, you need to really focus in, on a density that you can really understand. And so if you spread yourself too thin, I don't think you as I don't think you're as effective as you can be as if you're
That's
focused
true.
in your local market.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you got to the larger firm, did you have a more narrow geographic focus, or was it a property type focus, or were you just a talented generalist across a geographic area?
Yeah, at that time I was really just soaking in every type of property that I could look at. So it really broadened up a lot of areas, uh, a lot of counties, right? A lot of parishes. It opened
Yeah.
up, because that firm was big enough that they got assignments all over the place. And so we may be down at the tip of Louisiana, down in Venice or Grand Isle, which is on the coast of the Gulf of Mexico,
Okay.
doing work down there one day. And the next day we're, 50 miles north of New Orleans doing some type of other property.
Wow.
So it really, it allowed us to kind of look and see all these different properties and the market forces that impact the values of those different areas. And then as I, moved along in my career, it helped me narrow the areas that I felt like I truly wanted to serve and truly wanted to learn the ins and
Hmm.
outs of that market. And so that turned into this North Shore area, that really kind of brought me my focus into. So, but it's really interesting to look, and I think most places are like that. You've got all this different type of real estate, and so
It's true.
just kind of narrowing your expertise into one area, I think helps build a
Yeah.
good business that people can trust.
That definitely makes it easier for those that are working from that standpoint of when, like you said, like when Lake Pontchartrain versus someone's like, well, it's in Louisiana, and you're like, well, yes, a little bit more specific than that, but thank you very much for at least getting in the right part of the country and the specific state.
Yeah, when you say you're from Louisiana, everybody thinks you're from New Orleans, and New Orleans is a beautiful city, and
I
and
understand.
it's a world
Hmm.
destination from everybody around the world. You can go anywhere in the world and say you're from New Orleans, and they know exactly where you're from. So
That is definitely the case because most people don't know they couldn't name a second city in the state of Louisiana.
right, it's kind of like saying I'm going to Chicago, or I'm
Yeah,
from Chicago. I know
yeah,
exactly when you say you're from Chicago, I
got
know
it.
where that's at. But if you
Hmm.
tell me a suburb of Chicago, I'm out.
No chance. No, that's the same way it was being from Louisville, Kentucky. They knew Louisville, they knew Lexington, and they might know Frankfurt because they had to study some test for the capitals of the states. But like that was it. You mention anything else, like you're like, hey, I'm from like Muldraugh, Kentucky. They're like, who? What? What? Well, Gesundheit. I mean, I'm sorry, whatever. It sounds like a terrible affliction that you have. I'm like, no, it's not like that.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. So one of the interesting things is how those early experiences really shape each of us and how it influences what we do in the future. What was it that most attracted you early on and had you stay in appraisal full time when you started out part time and you were still a riverboat captain?
Yeah, I think it was truly the flexibility that it
Okay.
gives you, to be able to, create your calendar to serve your clients, but at the same time, manage your family life also.
Yes.
Family life is really important to me. And so having this type of career allows you to kind of manage that calendar, to manage your clients properly,
Mm-hmm.
but also prioritize your family
Mm.
above my personal opinion. It comes from, above my work.
Yeah, I get
I
that.
know some people are like, oh, I got to work. Well, of course we all have to work. We all
Mm-hmm.
have to provide.
That's true.
But I really feel it's really important because, man, look, time passes so quick, and before you know it, uh, recently, last couple of years, somebody said something that really hit me when they said, you only get really 16 summers with your kids.
Oh my goodness. Talk about a shot between the eyes.
Right. So when you hear that, it's
Mm.
like,
Mm.
man, when you hear that, it's like, whoa. And that's
Yeah.
the truth. I mean, 60, when they hit that 16, 17-year-old, they're not wanting to hang out with mom and dad anymore.
No.
And so it really brings it into focus. And so that's why the full time on the appraisal profession really was attractive to me. It really, first of all, you're not seeing the same thing every day. You're not looking at the same cube, the same four walls, the same desk, of four walls every day. You're out looking at different properties. You're meeting different people from all walks of life. And then the flexibility of, designing your calendar to kind of meet all those needs of serving your clients, but also making time for your family.
No, that's a beautiful piece around it. With your experience in and around the New Orleans area, clearly you've been through a number of what we might call significant natural occurrences in the 30 plus years you've been working down there. Tell us about that, because that's a different experience. I mean, I grew up in Louisville and we were in Tornado Alley.
Right.
There's a whole different kind of thing that happens versus, hey, we just got some snow, or hey, we got a lot of rain. But to deal with some of the things that you and those around you have dealt with, and from the standpoint of a valuation professional, you have some perspective like many of us don't even understand. Love to hear a little more about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we definitely live in the area that we have hurricanes. And
Yep.
so we've had some major hurricanes. Hurricane Katrina back in 2005 was a major
Mm-hmm.
hurricane that literally, although New Orleans took a hit, the hurricane itself is not what flooded New Orleans. The levees failed in New Orleans and it flooded the bowl. New Orleans kind of sits in a bowl.
Yep.
And so the wall of the bowl broke and the water came in and flooded that area. But the North Shore area, which again is where I'm located, we got all the wind and all the damage from the wind. So we had catastrophic damage from the wind here of thousands of trees down on homes, and homes, completely just obliterated by the 150, 160 mile an hour wind. So that's a whole different valuation approach, right? So now I'd say 30 to 60 days after the storm has come through, the banks and the people that are holding all these loans are trying to evaluate their collateral. What do we have left, right? So that's when appraisers started getting busy again, going out and doing, site visits to see if there was a home there at all. And in many cases, there was no home. It was just a slab. And so we began doing pre-storm appraisals based on, pictures and records before the storm hit, so that they can determine what was the value prior to the storm. There are a lot of insurance appraisals and stuff like that. So all those different disasters bring different opportunities for the appraisal process. But when your whole city, your whole region gets knocked down like that, man, I feel for these people in California. Here we are in January of 2025, and we've had these major fires in California where complete neighborhoods were just leveled. I feel for them because we know how that feels, and they're going to recover.
Yep.
It's just going to take some time. But, that's another one of the things about the appraisal profession is there's all these different avenues of appraisal work. It's not just refinance work. We've had that, that we've had a few storms like that. And, again, here we are in January of 2025, and we recently had a snowstorm here, 8 to 12 inches of snow in South Louisiana, which is unheard of. And so the last time they've had that much snow was 130 years ago. So it's like, what's next, right? We got the hurricanes, snowstorms, all this other stuff. So, but the housing and real estate market is so resilient. Everybody needs a place to live, and so we work through those different storms and different situations of determining value for different purposes.
80% of all businesses fail within 5 years, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. With so many roles and responsibilities that must be managed and have nothing to do with appraisal reports, is it any surprise that it's hard to keep up? Much less having a sense of peace, stability, and profitability that comes from growing your business? Given all of this, you might already be thinking about exiting your business one day. Don't miss the limited opportunity to work with Michael, a real estate expert and professional coach. He has worked with more than 300 owners and entrepreneurs to find their highest and best use by solving problems that reach their most important goals. Compress decades of learning into days by working with Michael. Michael is famous in real estate and business coaching. With his help, you can accelerate your growth, increase your quality of life, and earn more money, all while ultimately doing less. Michael helps you not just grow your business, but also find new purpose in it and in your life. If you're ready to take control instead of being controlled, contact him on LinkedIn or email him at michaelh@paru.com.
That is it's phenomenal. So how did you begin to learn about the whole concept of diminution in value or, real estate damages? I mean, there's obviously some amazing textbooks out there by some of our peers. Reading a little bit and then doing it are not the same thing.
Right. And, again, I had really good mentors in the beginning that, how do you go through that process? Where do you start? You always have to start at a pre-damage value. What was it worth prior to prior to being damaged, right? The diminution value, you have to know what it was worth before in order to know how bad it was damaged. Hurricane or whatever it did that damaged that home, how much did it hurt the value of the property? Mentors, textbooks, and live classrooms on how to do those how to do those type of processes of diminution of value. Because again, you don't have that automatically in your brain how to do those things. So you have to take those classes and listen to those mentors and don't be afraid to ask. I mean, I had, I'm one of those guys that, if there's something I can help you with, I'm an open book. Call me.
Sure.
I've helped appraisers in my area, and, I don't feel like anybody's a competing appraiser. If that's the case, I can compete with whoever wants to compete. I can do that. We're working together. We're peers of each other. We should be able to call each other and bounce things off of each other and not be afraid to ask, hey man, I really don't know how to do this type of property. Have you ever done this type of property? What advice could you give me on doing this type of time? And so many times done that and people have done it for me also.
That's absolutely fantastic to have that ability to reach out to peers and connect and really kind of share. What do you find is most challenging handling those kind of assignments?
Data. I mean, it's always the data is always the challenge, right?
I mean, it's a natural disaster. Yeah, literally.
I mean, everybody's the same, right? And so, it's always the data. But you show up every day, you work through the process, and you figure it out. I mean, you literally take each home and step through the appraisal process. And if you'll follow the appraisal process, it's very mapped out. It's not, we've heard people say this, appraisal's an opinion. It's not, rocket science, Well, it is a process from point A to point B, right? So if you'll follow the process, any type of property you approach, you'll be able to get to a credible opinion of value based on data. And so if you've got the data available, that's always the biggest challenge after a storm is, okay, well, but what really starts happening immediately is real estate happens. Buying and selling starts happening again right after the storm, whether they're selling the home as is and they're moving on. They said, I don't want to mess with it anymore. I'm selling it, gutted, or I'm selling it just a slab on the property. Well, what do you have? You've got a comp that's just a slab. You've got a comp that's gutted. So you begin to get that data, you begin to build those databases to help you through the process of the other 1,500 homes that are gutted or just a slab. So you just begin to work your way through that because the real estate market doesn't stop. Before the storm or after the storm, the real estate market continues to move.
That's a good reminder because there's always that calm or in this case, stagnancy around those type of events. But it doesn't, generally speaking, doesn't stay around forever.
Right. Even after the recent hurricanes that hit the Carolinas and Florida, Florida's kind of, they're kind of like us. Hurricanes coming. We know we got to get our hurricane prep done, that kind of stuff. The Carolinas that got hit so hard, they wasn't prepared for that. They're thinking, man, I'm in the mountains of the Carolinas. The hurricane's not going to hurt me.
Yeah.
And so we had appraisers that were in those areas and they were reaching out like, what do we do? And my advice to them was the first thing that you do is take care of yourself, take care of your family.
Yeah.
There's nothing else you can do right now.
Mm-hmm.
30 to 60 days, you're going to begin to see things move. Talk to your local lenders, talk to your local insurance companies that need properties inspected just to see what's there,
Sure.
so that, because everybody's like, man, what am I going to do? I'm not generating income. Well, there's opportunity there. So just be available. But first and foremost, when the storm hits, family, take care of your family, do your best to take care of your property.
Yeah.
But, take care of your family first. And
Yeah,
then
of course.
after that, the real estate market begins to take care of itself and it starts moving.
Oh, that's definitely encouraging to hear. Do they are there courses? It's a bit tongue in cheek, but it's also a serious note. I would dare say empathy becomes a trait of great importance times like that. And I don't know that that's something that most people get any CE opportunities in, any
Right.
continuing education courses in.
Yeah, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I can't think of any titles of courses, but I mean, there's diminishing value courses out there. It really just kind of goes back to USPAP. It really does. You got to follow the appraisal process. And if you do that, it doesn't matter the impact of the property, of what's happened to the property. It's real estate. It's hard real estate. And the buyers and sellers are always in the market of real estate, whether it's a house, just land, a damaged house. There's always a buyer and a seller bringing the meeting of the minds together. So, I guess the only way I can really put it is you just live through that experience and you really learn, what worked, what didn't work. There's road home recovery programs that all these states, kind of put together when there's major catastrophic damages that it's hundreds and thousands of houses. All of a sudden, the state puts together some type of road home recovery program. Well, they need appraisals for all that, and so you just kind of start getting into keeping your eyes and ears open for opportunity, and doing what you can to even the public themselves are going to need appraisals for different reasons. So it's just really kind of, it is part of just living through the process of learning, through the process of those properties. But you really kind of adjust and start digging into that data as the data starts happening and buying and selling starts happening.
I'm just thinking through some of the different work that we've done. I'm just thinking it might apply in your situation. Do you drift into, either because there's no other approach or because it's necessary, into mass appraisal when you experience that type of significant and widespread loss? Or do you move more towards more litigation work because of, insurers versus insured and differences of opinion, or both, or neither?
Yeah, so you can get into some of that. The insurance industry is kind of its own it's kind of its own animal, the insurance industry.
Mm-hmm.
They've got their own methods of when a dispute arises, they've got their own methods of processing through that. They use some of the same terminology as us, as an appraiser, uh, but it's not the same as a residential, like we do residential appraisers, right?
I understand.
So appraisers in the insurance industry are adjusters. So if you and I have if you have a house that is damaged, and the insurance company has sent out an adjuster to do their initial estimate, and it comes back at X number, and you go, man, there's no way that this house only has, and if we were going to use round numbers, let's say the estimate was 50 grand, and you're going, man, there's no way my house only has $50,000 worth of damage. Well, you can hire your own adjuster, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that adjuster comes out and does the estimate. It comes back at $200,000 damage. Well, we've got a major problem here because we're $150,000 apart.
Yes.
Well, as the homeowner, you can request that the insurance claim go to appraisal, and when it does, the two estimates get together and try to come to a conclusion of a value, right? And if they can't come to a conclusion, then it goes to umpire. And the umpire, a third party, helps that. So it's kind of a different venue of work. Yes. But sometimes those insurance companies, because there's so much damage, they just need people that are familiar with real estate to go do site inspections for them. Is the house there? Is it damaged? And send them a report on that with pictures, right? So there's some of that type of opportunity. There is some litigation opportunity out there when things are being bought and sold, and there may have been some discrepancies on value. So that all those types of opportunities come about also during that disaster time. But you really just kind of work your way through it as the real estate's beginning to recover and the real estate market's coming back in an active position.
Wow, that's quite an undertaking, to say the least. Goodness.
Yeah.
How has so you alluded to a little earlier the multitude of experiences you've had from going to work for that small firm to going to work for a larger firm. How long were you with that larger firm? And it sounds like some opportunity or some fate showed up and moved you in another direction.
Right. Yeah. We were together a couple of years, and some opportunity happened that we were able to, open additional offices and grow that. And then, as those grew, there was 3 or 4 partners in that situation, and then 3 or 4 partners kind of broke off into different solo firms.
Joe, I don't think that ever happens in the real estate appraisal profession, neither in the professional law, that, you get a few people that have some of the same pedigree and somehow or another they don't go forward in the future together.
Yeah.
That sounds shocking.
Yeah. And that, but that happens a lot in the appraisal industry. You've got a mentor.
Yeah.
You're working under a mentor, and then just like that mentor went off from their mentor, you grow the bird and let the bird fly,
Yeah, I got it.
So, that happens a lot in the appraisal industry, which is some of the reluctancy of some appraisers that don't want to take on trainees. I'm just going to train my competition, I've trained a number of appraisers into the profession. Some of them have stayed, some of them have went out on their own and are out there in the appraisal world with me. And that's okay. That's just part of it, we've tried to really mentor some good quality people out into the appraisal profession. I've taken, trainees that wasn't directly working for me and just mentored them on their own while they were kind of, going through the process of becoming certified. So it's, if we don't help our own profession grow, it's kind of what has brought Perea on, right? And so
sounds like a bad disease. It's like, ooh, you got Perea. I don't know if there's a pill you can take for that. Sounds troublesome.
Right. Sounds painful. But no, it's and look, that's going to give some opportunity to folks that are trying to get into the profession, that just because, especially right now, 2024 had the lowest number of real estate deals And I think the last time I read was 20 or 25 years. 2024 was the lowest number of closed real estate deals, in the United States in 20 or 25 years. So, when it slows down like that, it's even harder to bring on, additional trainees and make it cost effective. And,
Yep.
with the way the model is now with AMCs and everything that brings on a whole different, level of figuring out how to make it work and make it cost effective and, make all the wheels turn in the right direction. So it makes it difficult.
Yeah, definitely hear you on that. So you all are together and then you split up. Has it been that way ever since, or have you gone through some other machinations, as they say, or iterations?
No, we've been, like I said, we've been in this same office for 25 years, and I've got a good team of appraisers with me. I've got myself and 3 appraisers in my office and an office staff, and we've grown to, pretty stable firm. And we'll see, kind of what happens as we go forward here. And, I think appraisers have been adapting since 1987 when licensing came into play, right?
Yes.
And so we've got some changes on the horizon with the new Fannie Mae changes that are happening with the new dynamic form. I say form, they don't want to call it a form, but a dynamic report that we're going to be completing online mostly with mobile tools. So I think that's going to be another hurdle for some of our appraisers in the appraisal profession to jump over and adapt to. But, we've been adapting since 1986. We're not gluing photos into the reports anymore. We're using digital photos and sketching and all that stuff. And I'm testing all kind of different LiDAR apps right now that produce floor plans because the new, from what I understand, we've been getting bits and pieces what their expectations are going to be with this new dynamic online form. One of the things that they're talking about is they not only want a sketch of the perimeter of the exterior of the home, they want a floor plan. So we've been testing different programs and LiDAR programs that would produce floor plan. I haven't yet to find a LiDAR program that's as accurate as measuring the home, physically measuring the home.
That's true.
But, that technology has gotten better than it was 2 or 3 years ago. I expect it to get better more, as it's getting used more, I expect it to get better. But, we've got to provide a product that the consumer or our clients need. And so whatever that product's going to look like, I guess we're going to see, 25 years, 30 years of it now. I've been adapting since then, and I keep showing up. So it's still a profession that I enjoy. And I'm kind of a technology guy. I like the technology. I like, using technology to make me more efficient. And so if I can find the programs that can help me be more efficient, produce a credible result, I'm in.
Got it. Well, and then as you said earlier, it gives you more freedom and flexibility to do the things you enjoy doing.
That's exactly right. We just upgraded everybody's iPads in our office to the iPad Pros.
Okay.
With the LiDAR technology. We use mobile tools. We're pretty much a paperless office.
Oh, really?
Everything is digital. When we orders, legal descriptions, surveys, all that stuff gets scanned into a digital format. So we try to be as efficient and have the tools that we need to be efficient.
Wow, that's good. That's good to hear about that concept of not having bankers boxes upon bankers boxes upon bankers boxes upon bankers boxes of file storage to comply with all the file retention requirements
exactly
of our profession.
Yeah. We've had those rooms full of those boxes. Not anymore.
Oh my goodness. Well, Joe, given everything you've experienced, and obviously you're in a part of the country that many of us do love to visit, my wife and I included, we love New Orleans. Love to get outside of the district and head over into more of the artsy area with the locals, and they have good local cocktails there too.
Yes, sir.
But food's fantastic too. I mean, it's great for the waistline.
Yeah.
Especially on the not so humid days. I mean, who doesn't love an amazing beignet? But at Café du Monde,
Right.
not that I bring back memories of my last visit, but given all that you've experienced and all that you've seen and all that you've heard, I mean, what are you looking ahead to? What are you excited about or optimistic about over the next, say, 3 to 5 years? I mean, because you're still a young guy.
Yeah, I am. I'm optimistic about the appraisal profession. We are not 100% dependent on lender work. We love our lender clients.
Yep.
We enjoy doing lender work. Most of our local lenders are small banks that use they've created appraisal departments within the bank, and so they utilize local appraisers, and we appreciate that. But we've also created a good database of non-lender work, and so there's a lot of different options out there, and I think a lot of appraisers, I'd say many appraisers, don't realize the different opportunities that are out there beyond just lender work. And so we're really optimistic about, what's in the future for Joseph Mier and Associates on the lender and non-lender side. We're, trying to position ourselves in the market to be the trusted appraiser provider in the market. And so
that's amazing.
That's what I'm looking forward to on the business side. On the personal side, we love South Louisiana. It's a sportsman's paradise. We fish, we hunt, we enjoy the outdoors, enjoy the creativity of the South Louisiana, of all the different festivals and events that you can attend. This is late January 2025. And so the Super Bowl is going to be in New Orleans in a couple of weeks. And so we're going to go down and experience some of the NFL experience stuff that's outside the game.
Oh, yeah.
They'll have the French Quarter.
That whole fan fest is an amazing experience.
Well, I've never experienced that. So we're going to take the grandsons down and and go experience some of that. And,
it's great to hear.
New Orleans will be on full showcase mode. And then Mardi Gras is hitting right after that. So.
Oh, well, I mean, talk about a whole different level. I mean, it's not like it was, before Y2K. I mean, we go back, pre-2.
Well, neither are we, Michael.
Well, some of us just think back to the glory days. Some of us don't actually remember of those glory times in the French Quarter, but still a great experience.
Yeah,
still a great experience. Although I am partial to Jazz Fest over Mardi Gras.
Well, if you haven't experienced French Quarter Fest over Jazz Fest,
really,
you need to hit French Quarter Festival.
Right.
You'll appreciate Jazz Fest, but you'll really love French Quarter Fest, which used to be the locals French Quarter Fest was the locals Jazz Fest.
Yes.
Well, it has grown crazy, of course.
Oh, really? When does that follow just in succession, like Mardi Gras, Jazz Fest, French Quarter Fest, or is it later in the year?
French Quarter Fest is usually in April.
Oh, all right.
And then Jazz Fest is usually in May, I think.
I think it's early May.
And it's a couple of weekends in May.
Okay.
French Quarter Fest is like Thursday to Sunday, and they basically have stages all over.
All right.
French Quarter.
Okay.
Come on and check it out.
It sounds amazing. It sounds like if anybody's coming down for the Super Bowl, they should definitely show up with a couple extra tickets and grab you and the grandkids.
Man, you talk about make a dream come true. We could take those grandkids to the Super Bowl. That would be amazing.
That who knows what seeds might get planted for the future.
There you go.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Joe, I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, sharing your perspective, a bit of what you've been through and how you've adapted and adopted along the way. Thank you very much.
All right, Michael. I really appreciate it, man. And if there's anything we could do, it's great being on your podcast, and keep up the great work.
I appreciate it. Friends, Joe Mier down in New Orleans, definitely reach out. As he said, look, if you need some help, you got some questions, you got some challenges. Hopefully, the town you live in doesn't get wiped out by a flood or something. But if it does, and all you got is a bunch of foundations around, you got to know what to do with it. Reach out and talk to Joe. At least he'll talk you off a ledge and maybe even talk you towards a little bit of business. Even though it seemed like it literally got wiped out.
Good deal.
Appreciate it, Joe. Friends, until next time, have a fantastic day.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Perusings, Appraisers on Purpose. We hope you enjoyed learning from the amazing professional paths and achievements of our beloved guests. Before we go, please subscribe on your listening channel, Spotify, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other podcast channels to hear more from appraisers and valuers regarding their life and their work. After you drop a comment below, who is one friend and peer you can generously share this episode with? If you have any suggestions or questions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Just send us a message on LinkedIn and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks again for listening, and until we're together again for the next session of Perusings, Appraisers on Purpose, create the change that you seek.